To all the ladies in the place with style and grace, allow me to lace these lyrical douches, make them bushes.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 8 of Make It in Dubai. This is me, Vignesh, and
Shivang, Salam Walaikum.
he's either on the right side or the left side, wherever he is. Salam alaikum to you too, brother. So, Shiv, we are on episode 8 now, right?
Yeah, bro.
And we've spoken a lot about a lot of different stuff. Now, I think what we should cover now, which will be interesting to people, is to see how we actually acted. Not acted, but how we were in front of millionaires and billionaires when we first saw them, right? So there were many instances where we we became a good contact of them, we became good friends with them, they became like our brothers. And there were also instances where we met people and we got like, I won't say starstruck, or, it's like we were like, fuck, okay, we definitely have to make a conversation with them. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? And we
Yeah.
fucked up also, right? so, so I just thought, okay, you know what? Let's cover up today's topic where we talk about the best things we did and the worst things we did when we bumped into a millionaire and billionaire, and what we could have done better on the parts where we fucked up, and what we did best on the parts where we actually befriended them, right?
Yeah.
And you know how in the first 2 episodes I said I can't name them and stuff like that? Now I think, we can give their first names so it makes sense, because I feel like when you just talk about characters without a name, it doesn't make it realistic. So I think it's time we mention the names in this episode. And if they, I'm pretty sure the contacts, when you contact them later, will tell them you used your name. It's okay. It's for our podcast. So let us go.
I mean, I've been doing for a while. Since last episode I've been saying it, so it's just
Yeah,
you.
I'm gonna say it now because see, I just didn't want to involve my contacts inside this because they don't like to be publicized. But then the first names I want to change their life, so it's okay. Unless you guys go to my Instagram and dig deep, then fuck.
Now you're saying ways to do it, so it's not making sense, bro.
Okay, so Shiv, let's talk about. You want to talk about what would you say you have? What is the highest net worth individual you have in your network? Is he a
Yes.
billionaire or a millionaire?
Billionaire, bro.
There we go.
It's like, I don't want to sound cocky, but yeah, at least I mean, it's good something is there.
Yeah, he's in my network also, yeah.
Yeah, that's the common network.
Yeah, it's common. But he's more inclined to help you out than me because I don't have much to do with it. It's just he's in my
Yeah,
network.
the
It
same
comes to me, asks me
ecosystem,
for
so
advice, he helps me out.
yeah,
Yeah,
ecosystem helps.
that's true. So I would say billionaire for me as well. But it's about how. And what would you say is the second most? Second most, I think, are multimillionaires, right? Not billionaire. I think the second most you have is also multimillionaire.
So for me, it drops right after that. The graph drops and it goes to millionaires. but there's still something there. What about you?
You don't look at it from, see, you go from millionaires to billionaires. You don't go from billionaires to
So we do the other way around, right? Like, to make it more interesting. Right? Why you want to go the cliche?
Okay, let's actually, you know what? Let's talk about the time where. So in this scenario, right? I'll talk about the first interaction I've had with the billionaire and how it was,
Mhm.
and then we'll talk about the second time when I told you about that billionaire who came in and you were like, "Holy shit, it's the same
Yeah.
billionaire that you met before." How do you make
Yeah,
conversation?
that happened twice, I think. One is just when you were there, and second time when I was there as well.
Yeah, the first time it was
Yeah.
just me. The second time you were there, and we wanted to talk to him, but we fucked up big time. It's
Yeah.
like you know.
Let's start from there, right?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I was just gonna say. Then we start from there, and then I think then we'll talk about the millionaires who we befriended in our network. How did we become friends with them? What did we learn from them? What did they learn from us? Because, like you said in the previous podcast, right? I think that was a very relatable quote, Shiv. I might have underplayed it at that point because it didn't strike me, but now I'm talking to you. There's a reason why these billionaires and millionaires talk to us. Because, like you said, young people learn from the old, and the old people learn from the young, right?
Yeah.
So I went now when you said that, it didn't strike me, but now I realized now, like when I'm talking to you right now, I realize that shit. These guys are talking to us because they learned something from us, knowing that okay, these guys in their generation, what's going on? These guys are updating us in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And we are learning from their experience. What did they do wrong? What did they do right?
There's a term for it. It's called reverse mentorship.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's actually a term?
I mean, I don't know the official is there, but within the language which I have learned in business, this is what it's called.
Oh, really? Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? We'll actually research this after this done. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so let me tell you guys the story as well since you guys are tuning in. So I was sitting in my office. This was what 3 years ago, right? and I was just working on my laptop on something. And this guy walks in with his shorts. I think I told you the story, Shiv. I don't know, but listen to it again, right? This guy walks in with his shorts, and he comes in and he's like, "Excuse me, is this particular?" He just said the company. Is this XYZ's office? And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay." Then he calls the other guy who's just there. He's like, "Hey, Bob, come here." And Bob was like running to like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he's like, "Bob, where's my suit?" Bob's like, "Yeah, man, so your suit's right there. Let's go get it for you." And I'm like, so why the fuck is Bob working for this guy? I've never seen this guy in my life. Who the fuck's this guy?
Mm.
Like some 60-year-old guy in his shorts, and he's come to a corporate office in the gym shorts. So like, who the fuck is this guy, right? And Bob runs, gets his suit, gives it to him, and he's like, "Thanks, Bob." And I looked at him. He looked at me, and he was like, he kind of looked at me, and I looked at him. I'm like, I gave him that "Do I have to know you" kind of vibe, right? And he looked at me like, "Do you need to know me?" And then he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, I said, "Okay, I have to do something." So I was like, "Well, nice meeting you." And he looked at me because he knows I was being sarcastic, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Happy New Year, by the way, mate." And I was like, it's April." He's like, "A Chinese New Year, mate." And he just went out, and I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And and I'm looking at Bob, and I'm like, "Bob, who the hell's this guy, man? Like, he just came in, like, it's his office. Who else is there?" He's like, "Oh, you can Google him." I was like, "He's like, you can Google him." I was like, "Okay, fine." So I went and Googled this guy called Jim Mellon, right? That's his name. So I went and Googled Jim Mellon, and the first thing I see, his net worth was 1.2 billion pounds, bro. It's not
Yeah.
even dollars, it's fucking pounds. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I
Mm.
was like, I was like, why didn't I not make a conversation with him? What the fuck was I doing? So that was the first time I met him.
Mm.
This was when I was alone. And the second time, Shiv and I, we were sitting and working on something, right?
Yeah.
We were
And
sitting
this is the time we know the net worth as well.
Yeah, this is now we know who the person is. Now we know
Yeah.
everything about the person, right? So
Yeah.
the second time, Shiv and I, we were working on something, and he walks in, and I'm like, Shiv, bro. And she was like, what's up, man? I was like, bro, that's the guy. That's the guy. He's like, what guy? What are you talking about? I'm like, Jim Mellon's here, bro. He's like, holy fuck. We're like, okay, so we see him walking, and he's with some company members looking at the office or some shit like that. And I was like, Shiv, we have to talk to him today. There's no fucking way we have to talk to him. And she was like, "Do we really need to?" And I was like, "Bro."
Yeah, but parallelly we're collecting data as well. Because remember you heard the word cultural
No, I was
investing
coming, I was coming, I
and
was coming to that, I was coming
yeah,
to that,
yeah,
right? But I'm just talking about our mindset when you first
yeah,
met him. What were we thinking? You were like, "Bro, should we talk to him?" I was like, "Bro, we should definitely talk to him." But we were like, "But what can we talk to him about? It'll sound so fake if we go. Like, what can we ask him? How do we get into his fucking network? What do we do?" And I'm like, "Holy fuck!" Okay, then I said, "Ship, let's Google him and see if he's written any books, right?" If he's written any books, we can just read like a synopsis of that book and just go tell him, by the way, I read about this book. It's pretty nice. It was nice to see you in person. I think I can learn a lot from you.
yeah.
Something like that. We were playing all kinds of
Yeah,
fucking
we're
scenarios.
brainstorming. We even opened the website, we saw what else is there. I mean, we checked everything. We're like, okay, what is relatable to us? We will go for. Remember, we
Yeah,
checking like,
like what is relatable to us and which makes sense that will make it believable for him to know that, okay, these guys actually read about me. So it makes
yeah,
sense that these guys are approaching me. It shouldn't look fake. It shouldn't be like, I think he wrote a book on plants or something, right? And then
dude,
we
that's
were
all sort of thing which is beyond the vocabulary I had that time. Because renewable stuff, I don't know, all that kind of, I don't know, it's like very, very out of the blue kind of
Yeah,
topic.
so it's like I think that's what I was saying. I think he wrote a book on plants, and I was like, "Shit, bro, let's just read this book." Like, I don't know, read a book. And you're like, "Bro, why the fuck do we know? Like, what do we know about plants?" And I was like, "That is also true shit. Like, what do we know?" And we thought about so many different things, and I was like, "Bro, should I even go talk to him now?" And we were like, we overthought it so much that when he came the second time, I won't say eavesdropping, but it was a loud conversation, right? So
Yeah,
he
yeah,
said something about cultural investing. That's the only thing we heard from his mouth. We still I mean, I've read so much on cultural investing now, but I'm still not sure exactly what happens there. I think I should read a bit more on it and talk to the right people. But we didn't make a conversation with him at the end of the day. The story is we
yeah,
tried making it, but we didn't. But you know what? Remember, I think I told you this shit when Kevin Hart was giving a podcast when Kevin Hart was in a podcast with Joe Rogan,
yeah.
and he said the same thing. He's like, I was in a party, I saw Jeff Bezos walking, and every one of my friends were like, "Bro, don't go talk to him. It's gonna be so weird." He doesn't. You have nothing to do with Jeff Bezos. What are you going to go talk to him about? It's going to be so weird, this and that. No, that is fucking Kevin Hart, bro. He could
Yeah.
have just gone and be like, hey, Jeff, I'm a big fan, man. And Jeff would have been like, oh, I've seen your movies. Like, it's not like Kevin Hart is some fucking random fuck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At least we, compared to him, yeah, we don't have that much public presence.
Yeah.
So I was like, if Kevin Hart, a guy in his stature, was struggling to go talk to Jeff Bezos, where his friends were saying that, but he still went and made a conversation. He said that I just went and told him, what's up, man? By the way, I'm a big fan of you. I would love to learn business from you. And he said, the moment I said that, it was just a 5-minute conversation, but Jeff Bezos appreciated me and he showed me what's happening behind the curtain.
Mm.
Now, I just took that lesson from there and I was like, fuck, I should have just gone up to this guy and been like, by the way, I'm just a big fan. It has nothing to do about your net worth or anything. It's just that you're one of those people who I aspire to be. I would love to learn a lot from you. If there's any way where I can take you out for a dinner or something like that, where I can just learn something from you, that would change my life. That's all I had to tell him. Or that's all we had to tell him. Oh, should I hit the mic? Sorry. That's all we had to tell him, right?
Yeah.
But that's one, I still regret missing that opportunity, but it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. I'm not going to say no. It taught
Yeah.
me and you a lot as well. But if I had to redo that, bro, fuck. I would completely replay it. But because of that, now any person who I meet, I make sure I at least have a conversation with them that they remember me for, no matter who it is. Like, and that's one, right? And another, I won't say it's a failed, it's a semi-failed attempt.
Okay.
Azizi, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Shiv knows this about me. I don't know, bro. It's just, I've told you this before. I have it's like a spider sense when I know someone who's big is standing next to me. I have no idea who he is, but it's just something, the way they wear their clothes, the way they stand, the posture. It's like the charisma ooze out of them, right? You can just see it. So we were standing in this elevator, and I was just waiting for the elevator. Then again, another elevator story. So we were standing in the elevator. I was waiting for someone, and they came in, and there was no space in the elevator, right? So this guy was standing next to me, and one of my friends was a pretty big guy, right? He was standing in front of him, and I was just looking at the reflection. I was looking at how he's dressed, his glasses, the way he's combed his hair. Looked looked like he's properly groomed. Now, in my mind, there are a lot of checks I do to see if this person is made or not, but something in my gut feeling was telling me, I feel like the guy next to me is someone who's big, who's made it. But I didn't say anything, and I was like, how do I make a conversation with him? Because I've done this mistake before now, right? With Jim Allen. Now I was like, I'm not going to do this mistake again. There has to be a way I make a conversation with him, and you just know this person was like, so one of them got outside the elevator, so there was more space. And this guy was like, excuse me, guys, can you please make sure you move a bit forward so the person in front of me is a pretty big guy. He can have some space for himself. So for me, I found that a bit. So the person who moved, he was happy that he got space. So he was like, yeah, that guy's humble. For me, I was like, this guy was feeling uncomfortable, right? That's why he made him move. So we were standing there, and the other guy replied saying, man, you should come here in the mornings, There was no space. What the space we had between each other, that was actually heavenly. And this guy was like, no, I've been here for 14 years, man. I know how this building is. Then I was like, yeah, I'm not going to let this opportunity go. So I was like, 14 years, huh? What do you do? He's like, oh, I work with Azizi. I was like, oh, nice, man. I just turned back. And then he was like, oh, by the way, I'm Suleiman Azizi. I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, holy shit. I was like, oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Azizi. It's it's a pleasure. And he was like, yeah, it's okay. Then one of my friends was joking that, oh, you should have got your own private elevator and stuff. And he was like, yeah, I asked Sheikh Hamdan himself, His Highness Sheikh Hamdan himself, but he just tells me to keep shut. He just tells me to what? What did he say? He just asks me to shut my mouth or some shit like that. And I was like, okay, this guy's showing off because there was 3 other like beautiful looking ladies out there as well. So I was like, yeah, this guy's showing off for sure. But the fact that I was able to recognize that and at least made a conversation, which he remembers me by, I was like, okay, fine. Because next time he sees me, he'll definitely know who I am for sure. Because the way I shook his hand, I said, yeah, good for you, mate, and all that stuff, right? I'm pretty sure he might remember me. If he doesn't, it's a fail. But that's why I said I don't know if it's a success or a failure yet. So I'm just going to put that as a semi-fail attempt until it actually works
But
out.
I think he'll remember you in that sense of this moment. Like, I don't know, it's like
I don't know.
somebody.
Like I said, when I meet him again, because I know he works in the same building as me. When I meet him again, let's see what happens, right? So that's the plan. So that's the 2 failed attempts of my side, and what I've learned from that is what made me get the existing contacts I have who've also made a lot of money for their names. They are millionaires, right? They have good amount of money to live their life by. But at least now, the fact that they're able to call me their brother is only because of these failed attempts that I've had. So I've learned what not to do, what's the right thing to do, what's the right conversation to have. Now, one thing about Shiv and I, we're not trying to boast ourselves here, but since we're trying to make sure everybody makes it, every millionaire we've met after that, or even that one billionaire that we know, they all have told us,
Multi-billionaire.
right?
Multi-billionaire.
A multi-billionaire. Yeah, Shiv, it's just but the thing is, they've told us that we're special. They've told Shiv he's special. They've told me I'm special. It's because of the conversations we have and everything. Now we're not trying to show off, but what we're trying to say is why did they call us special? We know what we're doing outside of that. We know what kind of content we're consuming. We know exactly what we're doing. That's something which we want to discuss now, right? And two, we want to tell you guys, when you approach a millionaire or billionaire, what can you do so that you don't end up in the situation we are at? Or you end up exactly in the situation where millionaires call us brothers or stuff like that. It's up to you how you want to look at it. But the question is, what did we do different? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And what did we learn from it? That's the gist of this whole podcast, right?
Yeah, I think even when people hear this, right, like, so even by hearing or listening to this podcast, like two random dudes bumping into these kind of stuff is also preparation in a way. It's like, we didn't have it. There's no understanding how to approach this piece. So even if you know a story or two about these kind of stuff which happen, that is also like a mental model for you to react when something like this happens. So I think that should be a very important part for everybody.
Yeah. Sure. You talk about the billionaires and millionaires you have, then I'll talk about the millionaires I have.
So I'll start with the millionaire part first, bro, because there are more stories over there. So
Go on.
I think for me, what has happened is that the way I approach it now is based on, like how can I add value to them as well. So the way how I've met millionaires is through the organization I've been working. Right, it's not like bumping into like how you've done, like bumping in the elevator like you. So I'm introverted guy normally. Like I sometimes do small talk in the elevator, but I normally don't. So that is a bit rare scenario for me.
Yeah.
So for me, what's worked out is through the organization. People come in and I get to meet them. Now you have to spot, how to get things done, and you need to spot how much they can be worth as well. So for me, what has happened is when I look at them, it's like a mental profiling which happens, right? Like let's say if there's a millionaire, how he's dressed, is he wearing casual? So okay, not boasting stuff, but most keep it casual. The way they talk, the way they process things, the way if you're saying something that they absorb it or not, these things account to how you can base the whole dialogue.
True.
So how I approach it now is, let's say if you are a millionaire. Let me give you an example. I'll put the real name. Let's say Vince is the guy, who's a millionaire whom I know. Now when I'm talking to him, before even talking to him, I do a little bit of the digital check in terms of what's the digital footprint that person has. So I check for Vince. I put the full name. I go for everything in and out. What is the Crunchbase profile like? What is written over there? What is the website they have? What is the social media presence? I go through all of that. I collect the data. Now when I have that, my skill is basically digital marketing, right? So I try to see what gaps is there in their profile, in the way they're saying things. I just try to find any gap. It can be small gap, big gap, any gap. Now when I meet them, I try to bring a conversation around that, and then I be like, what? I've seen this. I was thinking, what? This is something extra you can try, or something of the sort. Because I realized the more these guys go on the top, okay, when you go extremely on the top, so you have people to do stuff. So the groundwork is done by somebody else, and you're not in touch with it.
True.
So for me, I know the trend, what is working out. I know how things are happening at the ground level. When I give him this insight, I catch there's a hook. I get the attention. So that's what I do to in the background to get to here. Now once I have that hook, once I place that, I'm differentiated from other people. So that is the model how I start with. I'll give you an example as well with Vince. I checked his website. I saw it's a bit old now. The whole way of things is written. I checked the whole flow. I sign up, do everything, and try to find out gaps which I can fill. I gave it to him, and he was like, I can see the facial reaction, right? It changes. You can judge from there. So they won't say it. I mean, I've never heard somebody say it out loud that, what, in that moment, they won't say it. Over time, maybe, but at that moment, no. but you can see from the facial reaction that okay, they like what you gave, and then after that you start talking. This happened once. Then there's one more guy called Michael. He was building a product. Okay, we talked because of business. We spoke in that sense. I know he's a millionaire. Now he's building a product. Okay, I spoke to him about the product. I went on the website, checked everything. Then I gave him a different angle of digital marketing. When I was just thinking normally from what my brain processes out. When I said it to him, he was like, "Fuck, you know what? I never thought about it that way." I'm like, "Really?" So it's a validation plus. It's like I know my stuff. Yeah, yeah.
And Michael was the guy who was working for Daniel Ek.
Yes, the Spotify.
Yeah.
So when I did that, like I can sense that okay, the gesture has happened. They know that okay, there's value coming in, and after that you do the small talk, and it's more engaging that way. Like okay, like I go by the same model I mentioned last time: health, wealth, happiness. These kind of metrics are there, and then I ask stuff around that because I realized something that like even if you take quizzes right online about your personality test or whatever, you are interested in knowing more about yourself, even the zodiac signs, anything. These things say about you. So, as a human being, we want to know more stuff about ourselves. And when somebody gives you that perspective, right, good or bad, it's interesting. So, yeah, I give perspective based on the work they're doing, how they're portraying themselves, how good is their Google page, what was my first impression when I saw that, how did I think they were versus when I speak to them, how they are. These kind of things, right, hook people, and that is something which I've been using. So one is my skill. I use that to tell exactly what is a gap, and second is I use these things about themselves which people actually like. So once I start talking about them, then slowly they start talking about me because as a human gesture you do that. That's how I started.
No, that's nice, bro. Because I think in that way we are very different, right? Because you go for the in and out, crunch base, that kind of stuff. I just go purely based on instincts and gut. Right? There's nothing. There's no content. I mean, I do go based on the content that they put out, but I don't go on the crunch base and see what they do. I don't give a shit about that, right? For me, it's more like, let's see what's the content they put out. What do they talk about? What is their accent like? What do they expect? What is their body posture like? How good is their oration skills and stuff like that? Because that'll give you an insight as to how good you have to be for them to listen to you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point, right? So I see all that stuff and I'm like, okay, so now the millionaires I'm close to, like your Sean and your Chris and your other Chris, I have two Chris's and one Sean, right? So how am I close to these guys? Simple. Just my curiosity. Just my curiosity on how did you make it? What made you do this? Like now, the first million, and I'm just gonna go chronologically here, right? The first man I got close to was Chris. Now, Chris's friends introduced me to him. His friends were one of my clients, and they introduced me to him. Now, Chris knows his friends for I'm talking about like 6, 7 years, right? He knows me for a year, and he comes and tells me about how shitty his friends are. Because he's like, those guys have no motivation, they're just fucking around. And he tells me honestly now, he's telling me that because he trusts me or he sees something of himself in me, right? Now, he told me something. So we were having a conversation. I asked him, I was like, what made you choose this path in life? Like, there must have been someone who helped you. What did you do? How did you do it? What was the thought process? And he started explaining, and he was talking properly. Now the thing is, I wouldn't say this is an advice, but this is something that works out. Be very good at listening, right? You have to be so good at listening that if someone says something to you, you have to use that word for your own benefit. So he was saying something and he said something about finance, and I was like, oh, that's interesting because I'm in finance as well, right? But what motivated you to get in finance, man? Because me in finance, I've heard a lot about this shit, that shit. And you just make like an insider finance joke or something, so he knows that okay, you know your shit. So I said that, and he started laughing. He's like, yeah, man, I've been getting reviews about that as well. It's pretty fucked up, right? And this and that. And when we're talking, he's like, I really appreciate you, Vignesh. I was like, why? He's like, you're one of the smartest people I've met in the last 7 weeks. And I was like, now, I can take that two ways. Either I can take that, I'm like, okay, as a compliment that, okay, fuck, in the last 7 weeks, I've been the smartest guy. Or I can see that this guy meets so many different people that in the last 7 weeks, his people that he's been meeting is shit. And he looked at me, he's like, man, this guy is something special, right? But I didn't take that to my head because I was like, I would have been happy if he said you're one of the smartest people I've met in my life in a long time. That would have been nice. But he said exactly 7 weeks, so I don't know if he was fucking with me also, right? But he said the reason why I say that is because a lot of people will come and ask me what kind of car do you drive, or where do you live, what kind of house do you have, how much money are you worth, that kind of bullshit, right? He's like, that's a typical question. But you never asked me even once, You didn't give a shit about if I drive. You didn't give a shit about where I stay. All you cared about was how I made it. What was my thought process, right? How was I before I made it? How was I after I made it? Did it change me, right? How am I able to help my family out? Why do I stay in Dubai when I'm originally from Germany?
Yeah.
You ask me questions on that basis, right? It's like that shows me that you're something special. Just keep going. You're gonna make it. And I was like, that changed my whole confidence in a way because I was like, fuck. At that time, I was nothing. At that time, I didn't even make what I was making now. So I was
Yeah.
like, if he tells me that now, so I have to do something. And that's exactly what I did with Sean.
Hmm.
Now, Sean, the way I met him was the most hilarious thing ever. I was invited for a launch event. I think I discussed this in another episode, but I don't mind saying it again. I was invited for a launch event. I'm standing there, and I see this one guy walking alone just by himself taking pictures. Now, I could have just been that guy who was waiting for the launch event, or spoken to the guy who's talking to me, and I could have left, right? But I was like, everyone's there with families and friends and girlfriends and stuff like that, and I'm just there alone. What am I gonna do? Then I was like, hey, bro, are you here alone as well? And he looked at me. He's like, oh yeah, man. Are you alone as well? I was like, yeah, I'm here alone as well. He's like, yeah. And I was telling him, look at all these guys, man, with their girlfriends and family, and look at us, man, single people in Dubai. Unless you're not single, I mean, I don't want to assume. Then he started laughing. He's like, nah, mate, I'm single as fuck as well. And I was like, nice, and we just high fived. And then I'm like, yeah, what do you do in Dubai, man? And he's like, I do this, I do that, and this and that. And I had no idea who he was, right? I had
Hmm.
nothing about him. But like I said, I just have this feeling that when I meet someone, that this person is someone. Then we have one hour conversation. I ask him, what do you do? Same thing. Nothing about how much he's worth, what car he drives, none of that bullshit. What do you do? How did you do it? What made you do it? How are you in this place? How did you join this place? Do you know people here? Oh, how long have you been in Dubai for? Why did you move from? Because this guy is originally from the UK, right? So I'm like, why did you move from the UK to Dubai? What was the thought process there? Because UK is a first world country.
Yeah.
So why are you moving here? Then he was like, oh, the society is shit there, but Dubai it's better, it's safer, and all that stuff, right? That's it. And he said, you know what, mate? I love the vibe that you have. How old are you? And I was like, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that in this podcast now, but I just told him that, and he was like, holy shit, you're that young, huh? I was like, yeah. He said we gotta hang out. This was 2 months ago, I think, and we've been hanging out every week. Every weekend, it's like I text him or he texts me saying, let's go meet for coffee. Because he loves what he learns from me, like you said, shit, reverse mentorship. I
Yeah.
love what I learn from him. He loves what he learns from me, and we just keep chatting about random shit, Like,
Hmm.
but the thing is, I think about something that week, he thinks about something that week, and we both always end up talking about the same thing. And
It's
I'm
like
like, bro,
offline podcast, like unofficial podcast.
yeah, it's an unofficial podcast. In fact, he was one of the reasons why we started this podcast as well, right? Because he said, why don't you guys just put your thoughts out there? So we
Yeah.
discussed this, and we just did it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he was one of those reasons as well. So one day we might invite him to this podcast, hopefully, so you guys know what we're talking about. Well, yeah. So that was
I
another one.
I
And
think since you mentioned about the curiosity part, right? So I think we have a similar approach in that sense.
yeah,
So the way we meet might be different, but it's similar for me as well. So for me, what has happened is I also have certain set of questions, which is not about what cars you drive, not about what XYZ you do. It's more about, let's say, because this is with Vince. Okay, when I was talking to him, I asked him like, okay, you got all the money now. What's next? And that is something which is actually, like they're so the thing is they're smart. So they're so smart. They already thought about these things. So I spoke to him like, what next? Like, okay, money is here, everything is here. What is there next? He's like, I'm working on something, and it's about starting my own index fund. I looked at him. I was like, fuck, really? I don't know. I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I want to start my index fund. It's in coal. I'm like, okay, then why do you want to start in coal? Why X, why Z? That's how you start asking questions. And I understood that part. Okay, why is going for it? But the fact that like there's a bigger vision is what like you understand how the person is first, and that's something when they start explaining they get passionate about it. So you like that vibe. After that I start asking questions about how did you make it, what is how's your first million, or how did you even reach where it is. And the story begins where he mentioned to me that he started in the like 1990s where just dot-com bubble was coming up. And he was basically doing trading, like he's in a hedge fund kind of setup where he was in trading. Then he got out of it. He basically got into the course business. At that time, he used to be sold in CDs.
yeah,
So he used to have like a course business, and he used to do like workshops kind of stuff. He started from there, and he used to trade at the beginning as well. He used to trade and do workshops and sell CDs, and he used to give these small print. These newspapers used to have a column for advertising. He used to give ads on that, like he used to sell it from there. That's how old it was, and he used to cold call himself, these leads to get from the newspaper. He used to call them and tell them you'll get your CDs by XYZ
Yeah.
date and all that. So it was back then. He told me now his trading gets him more money than the course part. It flips. But that's how he began his journey, and throughout that whole journey, he got into the digital marketing part as well. He became an affiliate. He started putting, when he started making money, he found brokers, online trading brokers who are in that space. He started putting in money as a partner with the brokers he actually felt are good enough. That's how his journey began. So this gives a lot of depth to how that person's journey been. What is the vision? And I can ask more questions and get more out of it. So that is one curiosity part. Second is another guy who is kind of like the model we have. His name is Lath. So his model is basically not as Vince, like starting his own business and building this whole stuff. He was more into like becoming the CMO and then getting into the consulting field. And then as a consultant, he puts money in different companies he's working with. So if he finds you interesting, your project interesting, he puts money in that and becomes a partner. So over time, the CMO part he got pretty quick, and
Yeah.
after that the consulting thing happened.
Mhm.
Entered the space. He has his own projects as well. He works on his own project. He stays in Istanbul because he wants to. There's no business he has over there, so by choice. So there's a freedom which comes with
Yeah, we
making
met him when
money.
we went to Istanbul, right?
Yeah, so we met him as well. So what happens in that case is that he's built his whole career capital, got into consulting. Whoever he's working for, he's like, what, I like the idea, I'll put my money, I'll bring my friend to put money as well. In fact, I'll get you more money from somewhere else because I believe in the idea so much. And he got money, he put his money in like 3, 4 stuff. And now he's like, he likes the place Istanbul. He used to be in Dubai as well. He worked in Cyprus as well. Now it's all choice. Like he's planning to move to Georgia. So all these things, I know it's a freedom which comes with it. So these things happen when you ask questions. I actually had the question like how much money is enough money. That's something I ask as well.
Yeah.
These kind of questions is where it's an intellectual conversation. It's more not about the car you drive or something like that because everybody else speaks about that.
That's
So
true.
these kind of stuff makes it more comfortable because you're only there for the knowledge part, sharing, and that's something which everybody appreciates in that sense.
That's, since we are sharing the lessons we've learned, there's two important lessons I've learned from the millionaires I've met, right? One said you can either leverage the knowledge you have or you can leverage your money. Right now, you're broke as fuck, is what he told me. So I was like, yeah, thanks for reminding, man. He's like, you're broke as fuck, so you can't leverage your finance. But what can you leverage? You can leverage the knowledge you have. So, like he said, you can either leverage your knowledge or you can leverage your finance. And I chose to leverage my knowledge because that's what I had at that time. Now, how can you leverage your knowledge? I would say by first starting out to find out the content that you're consuming. Now, a lot of people sit on Reels, a lot of people sit on TikToks, a lot of people sit on YouTube Shorts, YouTube. I do that as well, but it's about what kind of content that you scroll by. Now, if you take my phone and if you see all the reels I go through, it's always going to be alpha male bullshit. It's about new business ideas, new AI technologies,
Yeah.
new how the world is shaping up, crypto, stocks, startups. So it's like completely different, diverse psychology. So the amount of content that I've consumed through reels and TV shows, and that we'll make sure Shiv and I talk about all the podcasts and TV shows and movies, what we consume, what we think about it, and maybe you guys can question the same way. So in that way it'll help you better. But I'm just going to cover the gist of it. All these content that we consume, I don't read books, right? And Shiv knows that. Shiv keeps shitting on me. Like if you see Shiv's video, you can see that there's like books stacked right there because that guy reads a lot of books. I've kept his books for show. No, I'm just kidding. I've read a couple of them. But
Don't
the thing is, I don't read books at all. I just can't. I fall asleep. But now I have to find a different way of getting my knowledge. If I can't read books, then I'm going to be backwards. Like I'm going to be behind the race. So how am I going to make sure that I'm still in the same level? Find the right podcasts, find the right movies to watch, find the right documentaries to watch, find the right what's the other thing I was thinking? Find the right YouTube videos to watch. So there's so many different things I do. Now, when you do this and you put yourself out there, you think, okay, people are doing it this way, people are doing it that way, right? Now let me ask if this is actually a right way of doing it with someone who's actually made it. So then you go to that person, like let's say if I go to Sean, like Sean, man, last week I saw this, where Tate was talking about psychology, where he was like, I don't believe in depression. He was doing this. Now, I have friends who come and tell me depression is real, and I myself have been depressed, but now I'm out of it, right? But
Mm.
because I kind of believe in Tate's model as well. So, but I asked him, I was like, you yourself are a millionaire right now. How do you go? But he's like, you know what, mate? I completely agree. It's like sometimes you just have to talk to yourself and do this and that. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Now he finds it interesting that I come and mention psychology to him because he's like, okay, this guy's we're talking about something deeper here. You know what I mean? We're not
Mm.
talking about superficial bullshit. So
Yeah.
you have to be that person that's able to contribute in a deep way with your millionaires and billionaires to catch their attention. That's what they like. They love seeing that spark. That when you go next to them, they should be like, this guy is so motivated. He's so smart compared to another, you know, people in their 20s. How can we help him? What kind of questions is he asking me? How is he keeping my mind captivated? So I always tell Shiv and I, we both believe in one thing, which is no matter what, when people talk to us, they should feel two things: entertained, and they should feel value for their time. They should feel that, fuck, this 1 hour or 30 minutes I've spent with these guys, I've learned something new. No
Yeah.
matter who they are, it can be fucking millionaires, billionaires, people who are in university, it doesn't matter who the fuck it is, they learn something from us. And we've always been on the quest for that knowledge, right? We always have that thirst that, okay, no matter what, we're going to learn something that will mind fuck someone. She was like that, I'm like that. So I would suggest you guys to be like that as well. Make sure from now on, anyone who spends time with you, they should get mindfucked one way or the other, either by the amount of knowledge you have, or the way you're executing the knowledge you have, or the source of how you're getting your knowledge. One of them has to be so, like, in a level where they should be able to be like, fuck, how are you doing that? I want to do it. Like, I asked that from Shiv. I'm like, bro, how do you read so many books? How do you make it actionable? He asks me, bro, how do you remember so many quotes from this TV show, that podcast? How are you using it? So that kind of stuff, that mental stimulation needs to be there. So find a way to do that. Because if you don't have that mental stimulation yourself, you will not be able to talk to millionaires and billionaires and keep them entertained. Because you'll just be one of the guys. Because they meet so many people. Because once, like, let's take an average person, right? Once they know that, okay, this person is a millionaire or a billionaire, they'll be like, okay, I found my person. I'm just gonna go and try making friends with them. That doesn't, like Shiv said, you guys need to make sure that you give out value. Now be like, like I said, when you go to that billionaire, be like, listen, this is what I'm doing right now, right? This is what I want to become. This, and the way you talk to them, they will know that, okay, this person's genuine. He's a very nice guy. He's just trying to understand how I made it in life. You know what? Let's give him a shot. And another thing which another millionaire told me is, no one asks them out for dinner. They all try to use them for their money. Oh, let's go out. You pay the bill. Let's go out here. Let's go out there. Oh, are you going to pick me up in your supercar? That kind of stuff. No one asks them out for dinner because at the end of the day, even if it's 50 dirhams, 100 dirhams, 200, doesn't fucking matter. They already know who you are in life. So you don't have to take them to a special place to show them that you have money. This is something I learned through my own experience. Because I used to think, okay, no matter who they are, I have to take them to a place where I can spend money so they understand. No, they already know who you are. Just be genuine. Take them to any place, right? Take them for dinner, invite them, talk to them, treat them like they're normal human beings. Try understanding a lot from them. They will love you. So this is one of the golden nugget I think I can say from this episode is treat your millionaires like you're normal human beings, like your peers you can learn a lot from.
I
Right?
think, bro, there's one more nugget which I think you've got recently, and it's actually helping personally me a lot. Where remember you got this whole theory of short, mid, and long stuff, and right now, if you have to make things actionable, let's say even people who will meet millionaires or billionaires later, if they know the short, mid, and long the concept, they can actually start making things actionable, and they'll have stories to say.
True.
So I think you can elaborate on that part because that is something which is very transformative.
Yeah, so I met so Sean was telling me, right? So I was telling him, I'm stuck in life and I don't feel like for the amount of knowledge and the amount of skills I have, I don't see that on my bank. I don't see the $1 million. So I feel like I'm not worth it. That's what I was telling him. He was like, okay, Vignesh, what do you do right now? And I was telling him, this is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. Now, the thing is, I'm very self aware about myself, so I know he was going to shit on me. I just knew it. So I was like, then he's like, okay, Vignesh, I believe in three things: short term, mid term, and long term. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, you need to have three sources of earning money. Your short term, where you can earn it immediately, like this minute. If I tell you, can you earn from something, you need to have that. And your midterm, which can be your quarterly, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And then you have your long term, which is like a year, 2 years, 3 years goal, right? Now, what I realized was most of us are working on long term goals. There's nothing short term. Like for example, right now, with the amount of sales skills I have, if I have to go teach someone how to do scales right now for like $100, I won't do it because I'm like, I believe I'm worth millions, so I'm just gonna go for that. If you offer me that, I'm coming. Otherwise, I'm not. But that's where the game changes, right? Because he's like, no, if you go for that 100, go for 10 people, 20, 30, 40, it compounds into something bigger, right? Now, your long term, like this example, this podcast, the YouTube we do, the other pages we run, the kind of businesses we start, that can be a long term asset. But you need to go pick the low hanging fruits as well. That's what he says, because everything will compound into something bigger. It's all about the small wins. People always look for the big wins that they don't consider that, there's so much area to cover that you feel like you're not reaching. But if you count all these small areas as wins, it's like you keep pushing yourself like a boundary every morning or every day when you wake up, or every minute, right? So that is a valuable lesson which he told us. Another thing which he said was, this is something which you guys can do as well. Write down your dream life. What car you want to drive, what house you want to live. Now be reasonable, because you as a single guy, you don't want to live in a 10-bedroom fucking villa. It's not going to be useful for you, right? But let's say you want to live in a 3-4 bedroom villa. That makes sense because you have guests coming over, you have friends coming over, right? So write down the list of what you want your dream life to be and how much it costs per month, right? That will give you an idea as to how far you are from your goals. Everyone says, I want to become a millionaire and stuff like that. But you ask all these millionaires, do you know when you made your first million? They'll just say, it just happened. It was not a eureka moment, like, fuck, I'm a millionaire now. And that was a beautiful point, because they're like, Vignesh, right now you're trying to like get into professional boxing. I'm like, yeah. If you work out every day, if you box every day, and you go to the main event and you win, are you going to be surprised that you won, or are you going to be like, fucking, I deserve that win because I worked hard for it? I was like, I won't be surprised, but I'll be happy. He's like, exactly. You won't be surprised, right? That feeling that you think you'll get when you see that seven figure thing in your bank account, it's not what you think it's going to be. Now, people who win it through lottery systems, they're going to be like, holy fuck, I just made $1 million, damn, all that stuff, because they never expected it. They never worked for it. But if you work for it every day, you put in your time, you put in your hard work, you put in your creativity, and eventually when you see the $1 million in your bank, you're just going to be like, yeah, fucking deserved it. And it's just going to go, right? It's not going to change anything in you, is what he said. Another thing what he said was, he's already been living that life. He's like, now I know monthly this is how much I need, like $20,000 to $25,000. That's all I need to live the dream life. And once I get millions, it doesn't matter, because I'm anyway living the $1 million life in my head. So it doesn't matter to me. So these are lessons that shaped Shiv and I in a way that, okay, fuck. We thought when you touch million, we were going to be like, damn, it's like a holy number. But no, it's like your hard work is just, you just keep putting in the hard work, the value keeps increasing, and you get to the number, you're like, oh, okay, I deserved it. Okay, fuck it. What's next? So that's something that changed our life. So I would say to you guys who's listening, put down a list of what you want to achieve in life, how much it costs, and you'll be surprised it doesn't cost $1 million. Just costs way less. But it's the value that you create. Because even if you get 20, 30 million, what's next? You're just going to keep sitting all day, going to a beach? Nothing, right? You need to do something more. So that's what all the lessons we learn from millionaires, billionaires, they all say the same thing. It's about the value, it's about the legacy, and it's about what keeps generating that income. How does it keep challenging your brain? That's all these guys look for. They only go for challenge and legacy and reputation. And everything else just follows. So that's a key takeaway from the billionaires and millionaires we've got. So, and if you guys can write it down as well, that would help you, right? Anything else you want to say, Shiv?
Yep. I think this is a perfect episode for wrapping everything around.
Yeah. So, anyone else who finds out about a millionaire or billionaire you've been always wanting to talk to, hope this episode helps you. Like I said, just prepare yourself. Make sure that you're not one of the dumb ones. Make sure that you at least know what kind of questions you're going to ask them, and it's a sensible question. It should show that you're a motivated individual. It should show that you're a creative individual, and it should show that you're someone who's in thirst for knowledge, because that's all that matters. The more knowledge you go for, the better you become. That's a golden nugget I have for this episode.
And yeah, just keep it natural. Don't.
Yeah, just keep it natural. Don't fake it. I don't believe in faking it till making it, but yeah, if you believe it, great. But trust me, don't. Right? Well,
Okay.
cheers, guys. See you guys in episode 9.
See you
Peace
guys.
out.